morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told how to voice the radio. So today we need to take a look at what is happening with the price of Stellar Crown cards. Yes, they are coming down. Yes, they are coming down very sharply. Let me explain it to you. And I've not even waited very long to make this video. I'm sitting here recording this on Monday. The set came out on Friday. I tell you guys quite a lot that we see all these sales happening when the pre-release starts, and that is very silly, and the prices always come crashing down. Well, we're not there yet in terms of prices getting as low as they should. The prices have still got plenty, and I do mean plenty of room to keep coming down, but I want to show you what's already started happening. Sounds like a plan? Excellent. So let's start off with what is turning out to be the big card in the set, the Terapagos EX Special Illustration Rare, which of course is interesting because that was not necessarily the biggest card over in Japan. Now, don't get me wrong, it was pretty gosh darn close, but that was, when you look at the Japanese set Stellar Miracle, their equivalent set thereof, they have Lacey as their number one card, and Terapagos coming in about 50% lower. Like, you add just a bit more than 50% on to the Terapagos, and you get to the price of Lacey. Not the case over here. Right now, Terapagos is destroying Lacey in terms of the most valuable cards in the set. Now, when I showed you this t'other day, I showed you that actually the prices were quite high. I showed you that initially, when it first went up, we were seeing prices of $200, and confirmed sales, not best offer accepted or any of that rubbish, confirmed sales of 200, and then they, within a couple of days, had fallen down to like 170. Still way too high, but falling down quite a bit. Where are we now? About 135. As I record the video here, the last 3 sold over on eBay, and they've sold for 135, 130, and just over 140, so we average them out, we get to basically $135. That is roughly what we're paying for the Special Illustration Rare of Terapagos right now. Cool. It's still way too high. Let's be perfectly clear about this. It is still way too high. However, it is sitting in there quite nicely for now at about $130. This is going to keep going down as time goes by. The comparisons I can give you are pretty much, as always, to the top level of your Special Illustration Rares, your Charizard EX. Because we can look at the super playable one with the stunning Akira Igawa artwork, the one that came around in Paldea and Fates. That's about a $105 card right now. We can look at the one from 151, which isn't so playable, but is generally more expensive, probably because people prefer the artwork, and that's sitting in there at about 120 right now. So Terapagos being higher than either of those, I'm still not buying it, frankly. I don't think that's legit. And don't get me wrong, the artwork here is lovely, and Terapagos is a good card, but from what we saw coming out of Japan, Terapagos isn't the unquestioned best deck in the format. It's not as good as Charizard, basically. And certainly in Japan right now, over the past few weeks, Terapagos has been far below a deck like Charizard. So when you got a less popular Pokemon in a less playable deck with, I believe, less good artwork, I don't see how this stays above Charizard, frankly. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe it will, and I will be proven wrong. But I don't believe that's going to happen. The other big card in the set that I showed you the other day was Lacey, the Special Illustration Rare of Lacey. And I showed you the first couple of sales from Lacey the other day, and I showed you that people were paying $105 and $120. Are we there right now? No! You know we're massively below that. Because I've introduced this video as prices are falling. What are we looking at now? Like $50. The last 3 sales are 50, 50, and best offer accepted on 70. This is behaving a little bit more like it. Terapagos is frankly still far higher than it should be. Lacey? Yeah. Alright. This is a little bit more like it. But let's not forget some of the big special illustration rares that we've had in the Scarlet and Violet era. Some of the ones that were, by a bit of a margin, the most expensive cards in their respective Japanese sets. How about Dendra? Remember how Dendra was a good card? Yeah, it's on $11 right now. $11. What about Miriam? Miriam was a big card. $23 card. So Lacey is cool and the artwork is stunning and it's a decently playable card, but I don't think it's going to see that much play and it hasn't been over in Japan. It's interesting as a draw card, but it's by far its best when your opponent's got 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, and honestly, that's when you really want to be dropping something like an I&O instead. Shuffle Draw 8 is good, but at that stage in the game, a lot of the time, you want to be trying to disrupt. As a side note here, yeah, I&O is above this. And I&O should be, frankly, right? That is a more popular character with a phenomenally playable card, which is like a staple in every deck. So that at least makes a lot more sense. Even that's only a $65 card right now. Make no mistake about it, special illustration rare cards over $50, they have to be, I'm going to say it, forgive the pun, special. And I think Lacey is cool, and I love the artwork. It was never going to get there. Now, the Lizia card we're going to be getting in Surging Sparks, that actually could. That is well above Lacey over in Japan right now. We're talking like more than treble the value of Lacey. So I absolutely do believe that Lizia could be an exception. We'll talk about that more later as we get more towards Surging Sparks releasing. But as it stands at the moment, Lacey was never going to settle above I&O. The idea of that was absolutely ridiculous. It's already dropped below, and frankly, I expect to see it continuing dropping for some time yet. As for Lizia, we'll talk about that in a couple of months' time. Cool. The other card I showed you the other day was Bulbasaur, the illustration rare of Bulbasaur. I told you there was a Bulbasaur and a Squirtle illustration rare coming in this set. I told you that these were cards that quite frankly were a little more expensive. We're going to remain a little more expensive. Every set we get random illustration rares pushed up far higher than they deserve. At least with this set it was going to be Pokemon which were, you know, there or thereabouts. Well, when I showed you this the other day, I showed you that the Bulbasaur was, and I told you it was way too expensive at the time, let's be clear, but I told you that the Bulbasaur was sitting there, the first sale over on eBay, $55. Too much. Way too much. If we have a look at eBay right now, we got more sales of this card, as you might expect. It's actually out now, which helps. And right now, if we look at the last few sales of the card, it's still way too high. The Bulbasaur is not dropping anywhere near as much as it should. The actual most recent sold was best offer accepted on $45. We then had a $46. And weirdly, a best offer accepted on $80 from Italy, and that is the Italian version. So I don't think we should take much stock in that one, honestly. So falling from $55 to $45. It's falling, don't get me wrong. It's not cratering like Lacey or zooming down like Terapagos. It is still falling, but it's significantly higher than it should be. And if we head over to TCG Player, we can have a look at Stellar Crown. We can have a look at some of their graphs, which are not perfect, but are pretty instructive. And we will notice that all of these cards are going down quite nicely. Terapagos, ignore the random weird spike right down. There's something wrong with the graph. It's gone from about $150 down to about $120. Still way too high, let's be clear, but you can see it's dropping down quite nicely. The Lacey I showed you, again, this one is a bit more dramatic. Started off, people were trying to sell it for $125. It's now sitting down there as about a $50 card, matching what we saw on eBay. If we have a look at the Bulbasaur, they've got it as a $30 card, which does sound a bit more like it, down from like a $55 card on release. And if we look at his compatriot Squirtle, because of course the two of them do make a pair, not quite as dramatic. It's still holding on as a $40 card, coming down from $52. but still dropping very, very nicely. And if you want, we can play this game with like any card from the set. The special illustration rare Galvantula has dropped from like $50 down to 35, and it doesn't look terribly, well, it's been winning a little bit over in Japan, but it does not look like the best deck in the format. Don't expect this one to hold on as a particularly valuable special illustration rare. Briar is incredibly playable. Phenomenally playable card, pops up in a bunch of decks, lets you take extra prizes, jumped up to $50 on release, and has since basically halved down to $27. And I could keep doing this for the next half an hour, showing you all the different cards from Stellar Crown, but I think you get my point. You know, Area Zero Underdepths, which I have lauded as one of the very best cards in the set, top 2 along with Noctowl, gone from over $45 down to $20. The gold version has. And we're going to keep seeing this. These cards are going to keep falling. That's what cards do after the release of the set. Obviously, the more valuable cards have the furthest to drop, so they tend to drop a little bit more dramatically. But even the big cards, and that's the thing. Yes, every so often we do see exceptions. I'm looking at you, Greninja from Twilight Masquerade, which for some reason just keep going up and makes absolutely no real sense. Seriously, the Pokemon's not that popular, the art's not that good, the card's not that playable. I'm not saying Greninja's not popular, I'm not saying the card's not good, I'm not saying the artwork isn't fantastic, I'm not saying any of that. I am saying none of that explains why it's by far the most expensive special illustration rare Pokemon and dramatically outstripping the Charizard. It makes no sense. But my point is, outside of those rare exceptions, this is what happens. And you know what? It's going to keep happening for every set. But I've showed you a bunch of examples, so now it's over to you guys. How your pulls been going from Stellar Crown? That's not just a random question. I really want you to tell me in the comment section. I'm going to read through them later. I hope I get to hear some lovely stories about your awesome pulls, or I get to commiserate with you for bad pulls, like mine. Tell me what you think about this set. What are your chase cards? What have you picked up? Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at Lacey. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.